Kia ora koutou, we are here at Tātai Manawa at Tāhuna, Queenstown, and it's time for a Cuppa Kōrero. Now, introducing the panel that we have today, we have Alexa Forbes, we have Dillon, and we have Shyla.
Kia ora i te whānau. With me, of course, Dillon is our rangatahi learner, really, in politics.
Sure.
And he's come up with the kaupapa for tonight. So we're going to do a round and see what's top of mind for everyone in the political scenario. But top of mind for you earlier was Christopher Luxon's unexpected, maybe even unintended announcement around MMP, and you thought that'd be a good thing to cover. But before we get to that, is that the only thing that's top of mind for you? Tell us anything else about the week politically for you.
I think it's, with all of this conversation and discussion around MMP that the Prime Minister has, either unwittingly or unintentionally brought into the political environment. Thinking a lot about the Opportunity Party, actually, and seems like it's probably their first opportunity to get into Parliament, and think of that because that definitely would only be possible under the MMP system that we have at the moment.
So how do you feel about the MMP system?
The MMP system, well, I think it's the only political system in New Zealand that I've known and that I've voted in, and I think, in short, it's definitely a lot better than what we had previously from 1996 before was first past the post. So definitely MMP brings in more of those that smaller party representation, makes sure, or rather than making sure, it inhibits the ability to form like absolute majorities in parties, so allows for more like diversity of voice in that. So definitely think it's better than first past the post.
And how about you, Shyla? Before you even talk about MMP, what's top of mind for you this week?
Okay, so top of mind for me is basically because politics isn't really my strong suit, and sometimes the language can be quite confusing. So I'm kind of here just to ask some of the basic questions, I think, because if I'm thinking that, then probably other people out there are feeling the same as me. So just kind of get a better understanding of, one, what is MMP, how does it affect our votes, and what if the government do go through the whole process of running out a referendum and taking MMP away, what are the alternatives and how will that affect voters? So I'm just here for the basics. So basic questions for me.
They're actually pretty awesome questions, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
but before we get, because that's actually what a lot of people will be thinking, and many people voting today haven't voted under any other system. They haven't seen a time when 20% of their votes are wasted, which was the case back in the day. And so those questions are really important. I think we'll come to all of those. I think politically this week, just for me, is that it's been a really busy week. The campaign is ramping up, and it's not even supposed to have started yet. Normally campaigning starts when government stops sitting, doesn't it? Which is sometime in September?
Usually, they give about a 6 to 8 week kind of campaigning window, give or take,
But we are underway with all of the behaviour that comes that way. We've had Winston Peters, and we have a government that has basically said, oh, it's okay if you want to be racist. It's okay, whatever you want to do. That's, you call a Chinese ethnic New Zealander, whatever you want to call them. So we're seeing sort of a lot of that stuff starting to ramp up, and it's becoming pretty interesting and not very nice. Also, the other thing that was top of mind for me this week was the unemployment figures and what sort of what are we leaving? What are we bringing? People like you, Dillon, how did you feel? Did you see those figures come through this week?
Yeah, I think it was I can't remember the number, but I think it's the highest unemployment rate in about 11 years.
And where it was really bad, I'm not going to go into the numbers because it's not our kaupapa this week, but where it's really bad is for youth unemployment.
Yeah, particularly youth unemployment. Yeah, has always been bad, but yeah, it's risen absolutely sharply under this government's term, for sure.
Yeah. Does that worry you?
It does, but I think it worries me, and I think as well it shows that there's a lack of priority toward young people and toward the kaupapa that they're interested in. It's this government, still said last time I was on here was that they're very regressive and thought they're not very, they don't provide a long-term view, which is what you need if you want to support younger generations, right? Like, can't just think the short-term 3-year cycle. So yeah, combination of factors that's definitely makes me and a lot of my generation super anxious.
Yeah, I can see why. So there needs to be some support put into place, I reckon.
Absolutely.
So let's look at MMP now we're here. So first of all, you know this, Dillon. I'll let you explain why we're even talking about MMP this week.
MMP, I'll back and forth because I think we know about half of the story each. But MMP was first put into the conversation in the 80s. And it was after decades and decades, through the 60s and the 70s, and then it kind of peaked with Longi's government in the 1980s of successive governments that were basically doing things that they didn't campaign on, governing in ways that the New Zealand people hadn't expected, or that they hadn't campaigned on. Didn't feel like that these governments. They felt like these governments were operating outside of their mandate, and that it really brought in an appetite for change. There were a lot of political and social movements in the 70s, and then leading up to the 1980s, when it was a ripe kind of political environment for change in the electoral system or something like that.
And we are talking about that this week because Christopher Luxon, either intentionally or not, he basically announced that we would be revisiting the argument without talking to anybody else.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because I was alive in the 1970s and I was quite involved in watching and listening to what was going on. And we had the Muldoon government, which was just horrible. And people were, exactly as you say, very unhappy with the authoritarian nature of that government. And in those days, it was first past the post. And in 1978 and 81, the Labour Party was trying to bring in this sort of change because first past the post really distorted smaller parties' representation. And social credit, one year, 1981, they won 20.7% of the vote. I mean, we can have whole governments on that now, can't we? But only 2 seats.
Right.
So you can see how unbalanced that was back then. And then they campaigned on setting up a royal commission and taking office, and all that was going to happen. They got the Royal Commission. The Royal Commission came back on the electoral system with all sorts of recommendations. This was in 1984. The government of the day did what governments of today do as well and completely ignored it. And so that happened until, and almost another slip of the tongue, almost unintended possibly, was David Longi went off script in a leaders' debate with Jim Bolger and announced a referendum on that. So that's what happened, and Longi was bound by that directive that he had to have, that he had to do it. So away we went. And the next bit was Labour won that 1987 election, and Longi reneged on the promise. But it didn't kill the issue. It handed National an opening. because you could actually see that the public desire was building. And in 1990, national government said they'd hold a single binding referendum. Well, that ended up being 2 referendums. Do you want to take over the story from there?
Was it the 1993 referendum, or was it the 1992 referendum?
92 was the first one.
92 was the first one, where they decided between
First past the post.
Between first past the post.
Mixed member proportional, which is what we plumped for. Single transferable. And so out of those 3, people chose MMP, and it was a year later that we confirmed it. So we had a year to think about it, because none of the big parties wanted it. It really threatened them. So they gave people every opportunity to go, no, don't go this way. But actually, the people did win out and voted for mixed member
So for everyday
proportional.
people that have been watching this, what are the pros and cons of MMP?
So
If you guys can answer that.
so MMP, the way that the system works, it offers you 2 votes. So under first past the post, you would be your vote would be completely confined to your electorate boundaries. So down here is Southland with Jim Mooney. I think that's him. Yeah,
Joseph Mooney.
Joseph Mooney. That's it.
Yeah, that's fine.
And your vote would be confined to your electorate, and it was basically whoever won the most votes in that electorate would win the electorate. So it would naturally narrow itself down to the duopoly of the 2 parties, basically. Made it very difficult for those smaller parties to gain traction and gain momentum. And what MMP does is it gives you a second vote, a party vote, which applies to the total national makeup. So it essentially gives you still got your electorate vote to vote for your local candidate, but MMP brings it to that national scale.
National, so you've got to say. Okay, then that kind of makes it.
So you got 2 votes, 1 ballot.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can see how social credit all those years ago, with 20% of the vote, they got 20% of the vote, but only 2 seats, because only 2 electorates actually had enough votes to get people in, even though they had that huge underlying vote. So it made real sense to have this national party vote.
Yes.
And then you get to choose somebody in your
So my understanding is there'd be more diversity, as in who would be helping run our country. So having the likes of our current government, this current climate, so you've got 3 different parties kind of keeping each other in check, right? If that's kind of what you're saying.
That's the idea.
So for me, that sounds like probably the best way.
It's a good way.
Yeah, I think it's a great way.
And it fixes that first past the post problem that a party could win most of the votes but still lose the election. And so it fixes that issue. So it's served us pretty well, really. We've had, I think, anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, it's resulted in those smaller parties coming in when they absolutely wouldn't have otherwise. It would have been much more difficult for them to get any sort of representation, and it would always sort of revert back to the monopoly of the 2 parties or the duopoly of the 2 parties. So with MMP, it does give those smaller parties a chance to add that diversity to Parliament, and it's definitely one of the reasons why New Zealand has one of the most diverse parliaments.
I think it's a good thing, because there's so many different types, different people that actually live in Aotearoa to this day. So I think that's quite cool. If that's how it is, that's how you've explained it.
And most New Zealanders think that. Which is why I think Christopher Luxon's comment this week was possibly somewhat tone deaf. I think that people aren't going to be very happy with that. But I was fascinated by this echo of history. You know, David Longy, off the cuff, unscripted comment got him in the trouble in the first place. And now, all these years later, however many that is, 40 or something, we've got Christopher Luxon doing exactly the same thing, an unscripted, off-the-cuff
So do you
comment.
think he's doing it because it's been so tough, him having a coalition with 2 parties that are
Yeah, I mean,
Is that why you think he said it? Like, why he wanted to go back that way?
I congratulate the radio host, I'm not sure who it was, who wrangled that out of him, basically. Like, he definitely didn't come on there planning to say that.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I think he, I mean, his job would definitely be easier if he only had to worry about what would likely be just the one national party and that one national caucus. Right? Yeah, so that's why the big parties, and it's in Labour's interest as well to go back and try and get first past the post. It would make governing for those larger parties who usually decide the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister would make their jobs a lot easier.
So they would love to have that.
So how much does it cost the nation to actually hold a referendum like something like this? Wouldn't it cost quite a bit of money? But I don't know, like what. But I think there was another bill that came about that Tamitha Paul was talking about, like the English language bill or something like that, and she was saying like these referendums cost so much money, like. Why do it if it's not necessary? Like, so, yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to get a gauge on the cost of it.
When you run it alongside a general election, it's a lot cheaper than holding it outside. So if you have everybody voting all at the same time, it's not so much. But to put it in context, the two 2020 referendums, there was one for cannabis and one for end of life choice. They were held alongside that election, and they cost $42 million combined, so about 18 to 21 million each. Right. 20 million each. It's quite a lot of teachers in the classroom for that.
That is crazy. Sorry. That's crazy.
There was at one point discussion about, with this coming election, to have a referendum on the 4-year term, but that seems to have disappeared, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's still something that he wants to put in, but or that the current governing parties are aspiring for, but David Seymour did make it a bit of a convoluted mess. It's like, okay, it's a 4-year term, but only if the governing parties give up their majorities on the select committee. So it would make them, in theory, it would make it harder for them to push through legislation, which is what would justify the 4-year term. But that's not really, it makes it a bit too complicated, I think, for people.
Okay.
And the flag referendum cost around about 25 million.
Right.
So that gives you the context of that. So you got somewhere between 9 million and 25 million, but a lot of money, a lot of dosh.
And yet out on there's no jobs for them because probably something like that. Like that money could have gone into a more sustainable plan for with the likes of getting jobs or education, that sort of stuff, I suppose. Oh, that's just wild.
Yeah.
The one thing we should mention here is that when we made the choice for MMP, there were two other choices. And one of those was the single transferable vote. And if you vote in Wellington, Otago Regional Council, Dunedin, that's a different thing. And you may have seen it. It's where you get all the names and you have to rank the names. So you might have 10 people standing, so you would rank the ones that you liked. You wouldn't rank the people that you didn't want to get in. You wouldn't give them a ranking at all. The people that you want to get in. Your first choice, you put a number 1 by, second choice, number 2, third choice, number 3. And it's possibly even fairer still. Have you studied that at all, Dillon?
A little bit. I don't quite know the difference, because I know there is a difference between that and ranked choice voting. But yeah, to me, they're sort of very similar things. And yeah, it's sort of tries to resolve that problem of the natural duopoly of the two main parties by giving your vote, sort of making sure that your number 1 vote goes to the candidate that you genuinely want to get in, and then you can sort of rank it down from there, because it's like under first past the post. You wouldn't want to vote for like your left-leaning smaller party like the Greens or Top, because that's votes bleeding away from Labour, and so that would mean that National would get in that electorate, right? So the ranked choice voting offers that opportunity to vote for your most
Because your
preferred
vote
candidate.
keeps working for
Because
you.
your vote keeps working for you, even if your preferred candidate ends up losing. It goes on, and you can rank, I don't know, Labour second, and so you can sit secure at least that your
Okay,
vote
so where
went
you're
to.
going. Yeah.
So that one is a lot of local governments in New Zealand have that voting system. So there would be some sort of sense, I suppose, at some time in the future of looking to see if our entire national system should be the same for all levels of government. So there's an argument there, but I don't think that's what Christopher Luxon's discussing at the moment.
He specifically framed it as a referendum to go back to first past the post.
Yeah. Oh, has he?
Yeah. So that was I think what it was. Yeah, specifically on was the referendum would be between MMP, the current system, or first past the post.
It's a very paternal way of doing things, I think. It's like father knows best. It's kind of that first past the post and wanting to go back to that.
It's weird. It's something that nobody asked for. Nobody wanted. It kind of came out of the blue in this interview, and I think Luxon, as we know, has been dealing with those. All of the headlines have been about his coalition partners. Have been about how Winston's acting up, or David Seymour has overstepped the line week after week. And I think I think in his head reflexively he was like, I'd like a world maybe where I wouldn't have to deal with those people. But the thing is that this system has been in place for 30 years, and it's shown prime ministers who, while they've had their moments, have been able to keep a coalition together and have been able to work with MMP. And Christopher Luxon seems to be making this decision, or seems to be putting this to the public when no one asked for it, just because he's weak at his own coalition power play.
Scenario kind of looks like trying to put himself back in the hot, so that he doesn't have to work with people that he probably doesn't agree with.
And we should just mention quickly the third voting system that was rejected back in the day, and that was the supplementary member voting, and that was also a one ballot two vote system, but its proportionality worked a bit differently. I think we can probably leave it there and go into detail, but
it didn't happen.
It's kind of in the history. But I think one of the very interesting things was that David Longy, when he made the faux pas or whatever, at least he was responding to something that people had genuinely been asking for.
It was very real, So it was on his cue card specifically not to pledge, and he says he misread it. Basically, he says my glasses, I didn't see them.
Good idea.
Yes,
because he was an MP for Aotearoa, right? Back in the day, I'm pretty sure.
I can't quite remember.
Because I
Mangere.
I think you're
I'm
right.
pretty sure.
Actually.
I can't remember, but something like that. Yes, in that area of the country. Yeah, and rest his soul, he was fantastic, I thought. Anyway, have we chewed over that subject?
Fair amount.
Okay, maybe just have one more little question.
Oh, yeah, go.
So when you're talking about the government, maybe Luxon's not doing a great job with his coalition and things like that, from past, can you say who has done it really well? What Prime Minister has done it really well? In your opinion.
In my view, I've only been here for Ardern's government. I do remember when Winston made that call and controversially picked Ardern over English, and I think she managed, if you compare it to now, managed him quite well. Like, he definitely had his infamous moments, and his caucus as well was the most uncooperative, I guess. But she managed it well. I'd say if I only had her to compare to this, it's very in a much better way. I'd say Key as well, John Key. He was not afraid of taking parties like Te Pāti Māori at the time as well. parties that you consider even centre left. Like he didn't mind bringing them in and working with Te Pāti Māori, and I think he was also in coalition with ACT at the time. So you think about getting those two parties to work together. But he he kept the government going. I think it was three terms.
He looks pretty good in retrospect,
He looks he's
I did not know that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Don't agree with him on everything. Definitely, but definitely a much more charismatic leader, a much better political player than Christopher Luxon ever has been.
Helen Clark was a very interesting
absolutely
Prime Minister, and not popular in Maori circles with the Seabed and Foreshore Act.
She did that to herself, though. Absolutely,
she did that to herself, and I don't know how she feels about that now. Why would she even say? But that was really poor. But if we go back further, pre-MMP, you have to look at the Jim Bolger government. And Jim Bolger was he was an unpopular Prime Minister. Nobody liked him. And he was MMP, was he?
That was MMP. That was the first one with Winston.
That's right.
And that caused a lot of friction because I think someone was sacked I think Winston was sacked by Bolger at some point and basically held that grudge going into coalition. It was the first MMP election, and usually like New Zealanders knew on the night which government they were getting, red or blue. But this time there was an 8-week negotiation period. Winston dragged it out for 2 months basically, and really got that coalition off to a rocky start, and it did not survive.
Quite a lot, hasn't he? Throughout the years.
He's a survivor though, that man. Gets back on the boat, on that lifeboat every time. Someone shoves him off and back and he goes.
And he's back.
Anyway, but the interesting thing about those Prime Ministers that we've talked about, Bolger, Clark, John Key, Jacinda, they all managed to work with others.
Absolutely.
They didn't have, I guess the most authoritarian of those, in my view, would have been Helen Clark, which showed up terribly to her cost in the end. Disclosure, she was my lecturer when I did politics in Auckland in 1981, and New Zealand politics, so she really, she was amazing. But it was, she was quite authoritarian. As a Prime Minister, and I think that's something you can't be anymore.
Well, New Zealand makes the parliamentary system makes for very you can be a very authoritarian leader if you want to. There's only Parliament. That's the only sovereign body we have.
And Jacinda actually was in the end.
I mean, she used it definitely to her benefit a lot, and I think there are even some voters who maybe would have liked to have seen her use it more, given the mandate she was given. But you can, especially under the before MMP, you could be, as I saw with Muldoon, could be very authoritarian. Like the New Zealand Parliament is the only authority. There's no courts. There's no president. There's no separation of the powers. It's all concentrated in Parliament, which can make for some very authoritarian or unilaterally made decisions.
But the public will punish you all the way from Muldoon through to Christopher Luxon. We punish that sort of leadership.
Yes.
Well, I did read Jacinda's book, and I thought New Kind of Power, and I thought it was so good. Like I think from being around COVID, and you've got people that really didn't like how she dealt with that sort of thing, but the fact that she cares. That's what I want to see in Parliament, is people that actually care, that are passionate about our people versus looking good, making money, and solely on the economy. So that's just kind of where I sit.
And there's a good spot for us to wrap up because we are out of time.
I learned lots, by the way.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I did learn lots.
I hope our whānau listening will learn lots too. And thank you so much for your input and your knowledge, which is much more up to date than mine.
Kia ora. It's lovely to be here.
Hopefully we're all back next week for another Cuppa Kōrero and discuss the issues of that day.
Yes. Sounds good.
So that was Cuppa Kōrero. Our time's up.